Hi, I'm Amy, and I want to look at some detail with your playing today. This is more of an advanced level thing, but you can start thinking about it in the intermediate level as well. How we begin notes and how we end notes. And that's the topic for today. We are not always just pressing buttons. You've heard me say that before. And we're not always playing just legato or a short staccato. There's so much variety and so many, there's a lot of gray area in between those two things. And so I'm going to talk about that a little bit. The way that we start a note actually requires a lot of thinking ahead, being able to hear what you want in your mind. And I usually tell my students, when you're about to play something, you kind of have to think like a conductor. You're standing in front of your orchestra and you can anticipate what sound you want. And that sound actually determines the way that you're going to move before the sound. Okay, we do this at the piano. If I want to play a loud accent type of sound, I have to think that, I have to know and kind of trust what's about to come out of the piano and then use what I need to create that sound. So I want a forte accented C. There it is. I want the same note, but a half note. Off. I want the same note, but an eighth note. I know exactly what to do with how I approach that note. Let's do a different one. I'm going to play a mezzo forte beginning of a melody that's about to sing over 2 octaves. I want that louder. I'm breathing. I know that that's going to go somewhere, and I'm going to call that mezzo piano. Do you see how I'm adjusting with the piano? I'm working together with it. That's part of this work as well. I'm going to play something very quiet and very short. Let me think. Let me be the conductor. So I'm only using a bit of energy. I'm hitting the bottom of the note and I'm leaving right away. Now I'm going to play a long note that's quiet and lift off. You can use any combination of dynamics, lengths of notes, and context of notes. But the way we start playing, it can't happen after you've played the note. It happens before you play the note. When you see on your music an accent, if you've played the note, and it's too late to do an accent, it happens at the start of the note. If you see a tenuto, which is a straight line, that happens at the start of the note. The way that you strike the note means tenuto or accent or loud or soft or whatever. That's one of the dangers of playing the piano. Once you play the note, there's not much more you can do with it. You really can't add to it or change it once you're in there. The percussion aspect of the piano is that strike happens, and then from there, the note decays, and it's all about how we end the note. Let's talk about that. Ending the note, this has to do with how long you hold it, but never do we just sit and wait, or, we never abandon the note. If it's long, we stay with it. We stay moving. We lift off, hands in your lap if it's the end of the piece. If it's a big moment, we might lift up and off of the keys. If it's a big chord, sometimes you'll see that. If we're playing legato from note to note, then we certainly stay in the keys. And we don't end any of those notes. We transfer. So you've heard me say before, we drop into a note, we transfer from note to note. As long as you're playing within a slur group, that's true. When you get to the end of the slur group, that's a lift. We never leave the key this way. We never fall off or just, remove the key. That's kind of like what I said, abandoning the note. If you watch pianists, they just really always move in this direction, pulling towards the fallboard, lifting up and off of the keys. Now let's talk about the end of a slur. Lift off. I'm using a little pull in my fingertip. I'm using, follow through with my arm. You can practice this on any finger, lifting off of the keys, releasing the note. And use your ear, really focus when you're doing this so you can see if you like that sound. See if what you are anticipating in your mind's ear is matching what your fingers are able to do or what your instrument is able to do. Do you need to make adjustments? Work with it. Do we want shorter notes? Now, this is where we get into the topic of staccato. Usually with beginners, we see a staccato dot and they want the note to be, as short as possible. Sometimes we do want that, if we're playing something individual, short sounds. Sometimes we need a little more length on those notes. Maybe the tempo is slower. Maybe the mood is heavier or something. If we want, sort of that in between, think about how that feels. Think about the motion. Think about the time that you're spending on the note. If we're going for the faster sound, I usually talk about pulling the fingers back quickly. That's a technique that we use for a very short, as short as possible. If you pull your finger back, it leaves the key really quickly. So that's all happening in one motion. It's not play, lift. That's two motions. But all at once, I'm sort of just brushing the key. That's the shortest staccato you can do. A little longer, longer and longer. There's a technique called portato, which is somewhere in between staccato and legato. It's if you're looking at music, if you see a slur and staccato dots at the same time on the same notes. Let me take my G scale that I was using. For that portato sound, I'm creating a slur group, but I'm striking each note individually. So I'm not really transferring. I'm still thinking of the group, but the notes are individual. You might run into that. It's a length of the note and a start of the note. It's knowing what you want it to sound like too. So I would take those things, I would play around with them, compose your own piece, create an exercise that you can use. We need to be able to play all the way from a short, crisp staccato through, different styles and lengths of notes, all the way to the most smooth legato that you can do. We need to be able to start the notes with sensitivity or aggression, depending on what the music wants. All of that has to do with dynamics, tempo. And if you're not sure, thank goodness we have resources. You can listen to the pros do this and see how it's done and try it out for yourself.